When I joined politics, I wanted to be like Mili. Then I realized I can't have that hair. Then I thought, you know what, maybe if I'm like Shebesh, you know, I realized, you know what, Naisula, just relax. Just be you.
And you started the nomination, and then you went into, then you got elected in. So tell us a bit about that and your key learnings from the journey.
Thank you, Olive. And there's some who've had this story before or read about it. But I just want to share on a number of similarities of what we go through in the media space and also in politics, and that is probably what led me into politics. And so during my time at KBC and as a reporter, and you know how it works. So you'll find yourself being assigned certain assignments, either your niche, what you like, or where you come from, because probably you understand the place and everything. And so when I was at KBC, I found out that we don't have stories, mostly from the north, you know, from far areas of Kenya and where I came from. So there were no stories, whether positive or negative. And so I got curious and pushed and nudged every time my editor-in-chief, the newsroom, you know, and I kept asking, how come there are no stories here? And I remember one editor telling me, but there are no stories, as in nothing happens. There are no stories. I said, really? Is it there's no stories? I said, have we tried? He said, there are no stories, Naisula. You continue covering, you know, they assigned me other things. But I got more curious, and I told him, and then he asked me, do you have someone who has a camera in Maralal, in Samburu? I said, yes, we have someone. And so this guy is called JJ. He had a studio, you know, he just, you know, the studio, the one for taking photos. So I called JJ and asked, do you have a camera, like a proper camera? He said, I do. So I told him, so I want you to just cover, you know, just tafuta stories huko and send. Alafu mimi nitakutumia kitu kidogo, because our newsroom was not ready to invest in another freelance journalist there. And so he sent his first 2-3 stories. Hey, then the editor realized they are stories, and mostly because they're negative stories. And you know, negative stories sell, isn't it? So I mean, it's a story of if a man bites the dog and all. So there'd always be stories of drought. There would always be stories of early marriage. There'd be stories of conflict and banditry, like now. There'd always be those stories. And so they would always make the first stories. And the editor was so excited. He's like, hey, call that guy to come to Nairobi. And so JJ was called, and he became our first freelance guy there. And he's still a freelance, I think, working with Citizen now. And somehow it opened up. Then the other media houses started saying, "Hiya, kwani how come Samburu? There are stories now from the north, Isiolo, Samburu, those areas." Then they were told they got a freelance. They said, "Hey, even us, we want a freelance." So all the other media houses then got freelance guys from there. And so it was now during that time. And so when they realized there were actually stories, I was then assigned mostly those stories from those areas. So every time, packing our bags, going north. And so my encounter with the stories there were always of, as I said, sad stories. And so for me, and I think that's what then led to joining politics, it was just about empathy. And I think most of us, as we do our stories, and especially women, we put a human face to the stories. We just don't, you know, it's not just statistics, it's not just about how many people were killed. We go further and look at the children of that mother and what happens later. And so we have more empathy as women, and even how we package our stories, and even political stories. And so empathy is very, very important in how we look at things, life, and everything. And if we don't, we leave the empathy space, honestly, so that it's just about figures and the hard stuff, then we will not have a just and a good society for all of us, even for those of us who are in the media. And so slowly, that's how I slowly exited by saying, okay, can we also have good stories from my area? So when I'm sent to do 2 bad stories, I'd throw in like a good one, you know, like Maralal has the biggest forest cover. Then I'd throw in environmental stories. Then I'd go and do the scenic areas and visit, you know. Of course, they would not get the prime news, but I was happy that they were getting some stories, some positive stories from those areas. And I'm happy that now we get more to see get more positive stories from the north and those areas. So what now finally made me to leave and actually become the change itself that I wanted to see is the whole issue that now we are seeing in a bigger space of the conflict in the north. And I feel very sad that I thought I'm leaving the media to go where the policies are made and everything, to now end it totally. If anything, it has become worse. And what I have continued to do is to be the voice of those people, even at the national space and where I am now. I was doing it via the mic, but now I do it at the national space. And just to learn not to be silenced, I will talk. I will talk for those mothers who are displaced, for those mothers who their children are being killed, who they've struggled to educate until Form 4, and they are killed just by, you know, the banditry and the criminality that's going on. And that's why I say let's continue to have empathy, even as we give our stories and share our stories, because I believe that way it will bring change. You know, someone else will feel it in a different way. And the two last things is about passion, and that's what Amina spoke about. In the media, you just have to have it. You have to have the passion to wake up every day. It can be so draining, so tiring, covering every day. If it's about politics, every day you're covering so and so. Where is he? Where is she? What are they doing? I mean, if you don't have passion in what you do, and what finally then drove me to leave the newsroom, I left slowly before. Actually, politics, I think, was just by default. I mean, I didn't really plan that I want to get into it, but someone noticed what I was doing in the community, and then that's how I got nominated. I realized this is a space, an affirmative action space. I have to work hard to be elected so that somebody else can take that space. You can't be running, you can't be nominated once, twice. You have to leave that space for another woman so that they are able to do it as well. You can't be a women rep forever. Women reps, by the way, is an affirmative action seat. So once you run for it, it gives you the platform to then go into elective politics, and someone else goes for it. And then I said again, I'll run for a second term, just to again prove that you can. The second term for me was about then finally getting the, that the first one was not by luck, by that it was the right thing we did. And as people of Samburu West, we did the right thing to elect you the first time, and we will elect you again. And so serving my second term, I'm actually, very happy that they found it fit to do it. And lastly, I want to talk about authenticity. It's very important. Even in the media, I'm telling you, every time you want to compete, you want to wear a dress like the one so-and-so wore in the other media house, because you think it's the dress that, gave them the edge. When I joined politics, I wanted to be like Millie. Then I realized I can't have that hair. Then I thought, maybe if I'm like Shebesh, I'd be... I realized, Naisula, just relax. Just be you. Just do you. Do your things with your children and mothers, and talk about your north, and get your niche, because that's where your passion is. Let my colleagues who it's the hard politics that makes it go for them, let them do it, because that is who they are, and that is what they stand for. And so I'll just ask each one of us in whichever space we are in, because it's very competitive, all of us, whether in politics, in media and everything, just find you. I know we struggle to find ourselves. Just find who you are, do it the best way you can. Someone is watching, someone is following, it will pay off.